Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining the presentation today. My name is Patrick Cardiello. I'm a sales executive here at ActiveNav. And the purpose of this presentation today is to talk about killing your file shares. What does that mean? Why do you care? And how can we help? Well, to start off, let's actually talk about what file shares mean to us and really what the problem behind them is today and why we want to kill them. File shares represent an enormous amount of information stored in an unstructured environment. They are filled with electronic trash, e-trash, also known as ROT, redundant, obsolete, and trivial data, which can include all sorts of things, including non-business related copyrighted music files, empty files, temp files, Christmas party photos, and content that may have once had value to a business but have since fallen outside of their retention period. So they're cluttered, they're unstructured, and they're hard to navigate. And we know that for years and years, colleagues, employees within organizations have been treating corporate file shares like they are dumping grounds. So inherently, file shares present not only a problem related to cost and to search, but also an inherent risk, as we know when thinking about information security. What's lying within these environments? And so it's actually pretty interesting. The research has been done over the past many years to determine really what's lurking within these systems, right? We're not talking databases. We're not talking highly structured environments. We're talking file shares that essentially have content that's been saved frivolously and copied over time. And so we know from surveys that, first of all, 80% of the data footprint for an organization lies within systems like this, not in databases. The growth of unstructured information has been exponential compared to structured, especially over the past decade. We also know that 1/3 of stale data stores haven't been touched in 3 years or more, which essentially means that a significant portion of information is likely rot just by its very nature right off the bat. And then we also know that by 2022, half of organizations will include unstructured, semi-structured, and structured data within the same governance program. We've been seeing this evolving over time from records management being siloed from, let's say, data compliance and information security, and now we're seeing a convergence of all these interests into what we know as information governance. This involves databases as well as unstructured data stores, largely driven by regulations, but also the fear of breaches and of information security risks. Now, actually, this brings up a study that was done by Veritas Technologies. They surveyed over 2,500 respondents from 22 countries and found that only 15% of data was identified as vital to the ongoing operational success of the business, while a whopping 85% was classified as rot or dark data, right? And dark data meaning content that may include business critical data as well as e-trash, rot, and all sorts of risky stuff. So, really inherently, you have to understand the reason file shares are a problem is because they're full of risk and they're full of garbage, and you are paying a lot of money to search that garbage and to store risk within your environment. Information quality has gone down over time, and that's a problem today. You have GDPR, you have CCPA, you have information security officers concerned about password files and all sorts of things lurking within these environments. You're also spending a lot of money on e-discovery when litigation happens, when in fact, if you structured this content proactively, you wouldn't have to do that, right? So dark data, again, is risky and outdated information that is no longer effective to an organization. This essentially means data has become a liability, right? There's always been this balancing act between a liability and an asset. What is data and where does it fall on that spectrum? Now, data is an asset. Data is many companies' most important and valuable asset, but it's also an enormous liability. And this is what regulations like GDPR and CCPA and the New York Shield Act have tried to draw out. And fundamentally, it means data discovery is the starting point. You have to understand what you have so that you can make that differentiation, cast a light onto your dark data, and understand what should be kept and what should be gotten rid of. Now, of course, proactive information security is great, but there are regulatory reasons to do this work as well. We know that, for example, Google was fined more than $57 million related to a breach coming from the GDPR, the regulation. And these fines are going to continue. There's also enormous cost that's associated with information security practices after a breach has been completed, right? You have to do data audits. You have to go back and look at your workflows. You have to see where the content is and what was hacked. This is an enormous, enormous cost center. And so fundamentally, you have to look at the content before these problems happen. 91% of consumers say corporations should take the lead in establishing corporate data responsibility, right? So we can't wait for, let's say, a national U.S. law to come into effect. And you shouldn't wait for the regulators to come after you. You should do this proactively. You should take responsibility for your information and for your clients' information and do this now. And the number one concern are unstructured stores like file shares. So what is the solution? What am I actually here to pitch to you today is you have to bring in a mix of technology, people, and the right processes to tackle these unstructured stores today, right? You have to discover the content that exists. You have to categorize it according to its value, file by file. You need to get rid of the content, so that could be a hard delete, or it could be a quarantine during a period of retention. And then you got to take action on that content. And then you got to govern it over time. You got to reanalyze information, understand what exists, separate out client data from internal data, do these processes so that you won't be attacked by the regulators in the future, so that if and when you do get breached, your sensitive information is not compromised, and so that information is searchable and usable more effectively moving forward. Right? You need to increase the value of your content while decreasing its liability and its risk. And luckily, ActiveNav is geared up to do exactly that. ActiveNav is a file analysis software provider. We provide file analysis and data mapping solutions that essentially analyze unstructured content, report on what exists, down to the file content itself, file by file. And then it facilitates users to delete, quarantine, categorize, classify the content against, let's say, retention policies or taxonomies, tag that information, migrate it, and govern it, right? We're talking end-to-end information governance for the sake of proactive information security and privacy compliance. We've been doing this for many years now, tens of thousands of hours doing this globally, including on our biggest customers today, which include Equifax, Voya Financial, and in the U.S. federal government, the United States Marine Corps. So please, if you're looking to kill your file shares, if you're looking to reduce your data liability while increasing your data value, give us a call. So thank you very much.